Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Thomas Van Kampen once again, here with another episode of Let's Animate. So, when I left off, I was telling you about my new project, which is supposed to be a silent 1 minute film of these mime mobsters kind of battling it out in a gang war. And it's supposed to be sort of a noir, Sin City-ish setting to it. And that's pretty well the basis of it, and I think it's going to have a real comedic nature to it just because it's relying on mime logic and stuff like that. So basically, the characters in the shorts, they don't use physical objects, they mime them. So for instance, they're driving around in invisible cars, and they shoot from invisible Tommy guns, but the bullet holes still appear and stuff like that. So I think for that reason, it'll be really funny. Originally, I was going to have it called Mime Wars. I changed my mind. It's not going to be called Mime Wars anymore. It's going to be called Mime Crime. I just think that's a better name because I'm a sucker for rhyme schemes. Anyway, so what I'm doing right now is the mime that I'm drawing this moment. I am making a walk cycle for him, and it's a pretty basic walk cycle, all things considered. It's nothing particularly fancy. His torso pretty much remains exactly the same the whole way through. It's his legs that are really the only thing moving. But in spite of it not being particularly realistic, I think it'll have like this kind of unique visual to it where everything kind of moves and looks in its own unique way. That's not necessarily good like physics applied animation, but it definitely has like an art style to it that kind of helps it develop its own identity. Maybe that's just me making excuses for not being talented enough to make an authentic looking walk cycle, but regardless, that's what I'm going for. And I have the same approach to my backgrounds too. The backgrounds that I drew up for this project, they have a very limited color palette of like blacks and whites and kind of this radius yellow for lights and stuff like that. It's very simplistic and it's very rugged looking. And even though it was quite simple to draw and is quite sloppy, I think it suits the atmosphere of what I'm going for very well. So yeah, hopefully this turns out entertaining. It's definitely sort of out of the box idea that I've never really done before, and I'm doing a lot of different things with this one that I don't typically do, so I think this is going to be a particularly interesting project. And the first thing I wanted to go into for this episode is kind of my thoughts on like how do you keep motivated when doing a creative project of any sort, not just animation, but for filmmaking, for writing, for painting, sculpting, acting, stand-up, pretty much any art form. How do you maintain the motivation to continue to make something that's so dauntingly time-consuming and something you're not always in the mood to be doing? And I think the answer to that is the problem with movies and animation especially is that oftentimes there can be way too much like rational and logical planning behind it. Like people get so wrapped up in the technicalities of something that there's like and they that like they don't get themselves involved in the creative process enough. And the creative process is what really gets the juices going. Excuse me. And and the creative process is what drives you to make these things in the first place, and they're what motivates you to finish them. I think, in a way, every project should have, even if it's the most planned out, like, okay, this is our timing, this is our art style, this is our character design, this is how long we have to make it, blah blah blah. Even the most planned out pieces of art, they need to have some sense of spontaneity to them, I think. They need to have just sudden things happen where it just adds so much more to the project inadvertently, even though you didn't necessarily plan it. I think moments like that is and watching a project sort of grow on its own as you continue to make it is what really makes the process enjoyable. And that's why for this project, I'm sort of improvising it on the way there. I didn't really write a script for it, and I don't have a particular plan for how I'm going to make it a minute long and stuff like that. I'm just improvising my way through. And honestly, I'm way more involved in this than my other projects. And, even though that's not really professional, even though that's often frowned upon by mega really big like producers, because obviously the producers and stuff like that, they want a solid plan. You can't just tell them that you're going to make it up as you go. That's not feasible, because they need a general idea of how long something is going to take and how much money it's going to take and stuff like that. So I definitely don't recommend this for the professional setting. However, I do recommend it for if you're just doing a passion project. You don't really need to plan if you're just making something for you. If you're just making something for you, then you should just have fun with it and do it however you want to do it. So yeah, that's pretty well my thoughts on it. And some professionals have a sense of spontaneity to them. Like, I know that Hayao Miyazaki, I remember watching a documentary. I'm paraphrasing, of course. I don't remember what exactly it said, but it was talking about how he sort of freehands his storytelling or something like that, or he develops the story as he's animating it or something like that. I really have a bad habit of like bringing these things up without remembering the exact facts behind them. I should probably stop doing that, but regardless, I know that some professionals in the field, they agree with me, and they have that constant sense of spontaneity that helps them keep going for these really extraneous projects. So yeah, that's pretty well all I wanted to talk about for what I'm doing at the moment. The other thing I wanted to talk about is a recent trend that's been happening that's really frustrating me. Apparently, Twitter campaigns to make fictional characters homosexual are a thing. This happened first with Elsa from Frozen. There was a huge campaign that started to give her a girlfriend, and unfortunately the creator of Frozen advocated that, saying it's a great idea. And I'm just like, don't do that. Come on. Like, you're encouraging them to make executive decisions for something that they shouldn't have any control over, and you're screwing over other creators who don't agree with you. So don't encourage them, please. And to prove my point, now there's a commission to make Captain America homosexual because because people want him to get with Bucky or something. And this is a huge problem, and let me clarify. I'm not against characters in films and whatnot being represented as homosexual. Quite the opposite. And I'm not even against changing major characteristics of characters that have been around for a long time and weren't originally intended to be a certain way. Like, change is going to happen, and change is what keeps old ideas relevant, and so you need to encourage change in order to expand the creativity of people and to provide opportunities for new story ideas. So I'm not against making Captain America homosexual. If a writer wanted to do it, I would say go right ahead. It's your project. Maybe you can make something great out of it. Maybe you can make a really cool story out of the concept of a hero from the 40s being openly gay in modern times, especially since he would definitely be repressed in the old age. That would be cool. And I think that's a cool idea to get across, and all that sort of stuff. The problem is that I think fan bases have way too much influence over the creative process of projects. They shouldn't be able to start campaigns to change the way a character is. Like, they're not in the director's seat. It is not their product to control. They are just the audience. The most influence they have is when the project comes up, They can either voice their opinion if they don't like it, or they can vote with their wallets if they do or don't want to support it. That is all the influence they should have. But if a writer wants to create a character that's straight just because he wants him to be straight, or gay because he wants him to be gay, he ultimately should have the freedom to do so. And he shouldn't have to conform to these super entitled wants of this really greedy, arrogant, spoiled fan base that are only doing this sort of thing because it's cute. Like, that's literally the only reason they're doing it, let's be honest. Like, there's no... as near as I can tell, they don't want to do this because they think there are great new ideas for stories about Captain America. Like, they just want a gay superhero because they see it as progressive and they want their fan fictions to come to life. That's literally the only reason. But the problem is that isn't progressive. You're not making any bold statements about homosexuality. You're just using them as a pawn to fulfill your own selfish needs, to take control over a project that wasn't even yours in the first place. That's not progressive. That's annoying. And it's not even that particular situation in general that bugs me. Like, this isn't the first time that a fan base has more or less hijacked a project. I remember when the Michael Bay Ninja Turtles was coming out, and people from all walks of life objected to the terrible ideas, which I will admit are terrible, but ultimately they should have just let the director do their thing and not, like, change the way a film is done before it even comes out. That's not fair to the creator. And you end up ruining, like, a huge opportunity that the creator could have had if only you had just been patient and seen what results came out of it. Like, the attempt to make the Ninja Turtles aliens, or to make a white guy the Shredder. Like a fan base is the whole reason that studios are now so afraid to make risky moves. They're too afraid to create new ideas and promote new ideas and encourage new creators who want to make new culture for us. It's the reason why they keep resorting to reboots and remakes and all these things, because they want to pander to an audience that's so spoiled. Because they want things either to be like the old ways, or they want a change that honestly isn't warranted. It's unnecessary to make Captain America gay. There's, like, unless you can come up with a reason for me in the comments to make him gay, other than you think it's cute, there's no reason to make him gay as a character, because it serves nothing to serve his character conflict. He's just supposed to be a man out of time, who's trying to adjust to the new ways of society after being in comatose for several decades. Like, excuse me, I'm really talking. I'm not used to talking for this long periods of time. And it's like, it just frustrates me so badly. Like, there's no reason to turn him gay, and I remember somebody brought up the argument that there's no reason not to turn a character gay. That's true, but there's also no reason to turn them gay. Like, what are you trying to say by making Captain America, of all people, a homosexual? Like, what does that accomplish? As from a narrative perspective, I don't care that it's progressive. First of all, it's not even progressive. It's random. There's no reason to make him a homosexual other than you want him to be a homosexual, which you're not in charge of the project in the first place, so you shouldn't have a say in the matter. It just frustrates me. Honestly, if I went any longer than this, I'd probably just be repeating myself, so I think I'm just going to end it right there. Thank you guys so much for listening to another one of my rants and for tuning in to another episode of Let's Animate. I hope to keep making decent progress on this project I'm working on here, and I hope to catch you in the next video. Okay, see you later.